Hey guys, TGIF, it is Friday, November 14th, 2025. It is 9 a.m. exactly as I'm recording this. It is sprinkling outside and it is 58 degrees. Yes, we are finally heading into the more fall, wintry weather and temperatures because over the next week we're going to be into like the mid to low 60s, which basically tells you, yeah, winter is just around the corner. But with that said, before we get into this review, because yes, we are finally at the last page of this part of the story. Before we get into it, I'd like to ask you guys to do me a favor, and that's like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, and share the video. Also, guys, if you like to listen to podcasts, depending on what affiliate you listen to podcasts to, depending on how you do it throughout the day, whether at work, break, home, wherever, you can find my podcast, links are in the description, at various places like iTunes, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, Audible, Amazon Music, Radio Public, and to an extent SiriusXM. Also, guys, and I think I said Pandora, right? Yeah, you can also find me there. And also, guys, if you like to watch other video outlets, outside of YouTube, you can find me at Rumble and Vimeo. I have content there identical to the YouTube page here, but some content is not suitable for YouTube, so you can find it there more than likely. Also, ladies and gentlemen, you can find me at Daily Motion and Odyssey as well. I also have a Patreon. If you want to help go donate the Patreon, that'd be greatly appreciated. And I have a Cash App and a Venmo if you want to help out there too. Also, I have various places where you can follow me at. I'm at TikTok. I'm at Twitter, aka X.com, and Blue Sky. I also have a DeviantArt page at DeviantArt.com at BVW1979, and an Ink Bunny page at InkBunny.net at BWRoses. Also, guys, you can find me at these two stores I have online. I have a Fourth Wall store and a Teespring store. The Fourth Wall store link is at the top, and the Teespring store links are at the bottom. If you want to go there and check stuff out, see what you can get for yourself for this holiday season, Christmas season, or for family, you'll be probably able to find something in one of those areas. So go ahead and help yourself there. And with that said, guys, during this video premiere, if you want to chime in the live chat, you can do so, because that will be on and ready to go, as well as super chats will be on during the live chat if you want to help donate through that. And the comment section will be open on both the video premiere and afterwards. Also, guys, if you don't get here in time for the video premiere and you want to still help donate, you can do so through the Super Thanks option, which is the little heart with the $sign in the middle. So, with that said, 3 minutes, in, if you will. So I'm looking at the time. We are at, as I make sure I get this right. We are at the 78th page. That's right, we are at the 78th page, the final page of the visitation portion of this Zigzag-centric Sabrina online story, Stripes and Links. And what I mean by visitation portion, basically for the past month and a half, we have been basically focusing on and spotlighting this prison visitation that Zigzag decided to make to her father, her scumbag of a father. And to say that this visit has been really interesting, would be an understatement, because basically, not only did Zigzag finally get some stuff off her chest and everything, and basically let the father know how she feels, but we also got to hear what the father, not only did we got to see what the father looks like, I should say, but we also got to hear, his side of things, how he viewed things. And even though, surprisingly, he made some sense, if you will, in some areas, he still showed how much of a POS, as some people like to call it for short, POS, which is short for a piece of you-know-what, even though he still showed he was pretty much that and very scummish in the scumbag department, this visit was very revealing, for Zigzag and potentially for the father, but very revealing. I mean, for the father, he's still used to calling her by the name of Tanya, but she basically told him straight out, "Hey, I'm not going by that name anymore. That name is gone. That side of me is gone. I'm taking the name people used to tease me with, as a kid, as a teen, and I'm making it my own. I'm taking the Zigzag name, I'm making it my own. I'm using it for positiveness, for goodness, and all that." But again, this visitation was interesting. It was really nice. It was very intriguing. Very, like I said, discovering kind of conversation between them, because even Zigzag realized and even acknowledges that yeah, she has a lot of the father in her. She has traits of the father in her, but she's doing what the father would not do. She's basically trying to keep those negative traits, under control, and only using what little positive traits she got from him, and expand on them for an even better life. She's basically trying to make up for everything she went through, thanks to him. That's pretty much what she's telling him, even though she does acknowledge that he is kind of, because that he is right, that there's a lot of him in her, there's parts of him in her that basically she doesn't want to basically she didn't want to kind of admit at first, because when he in one of the pages where he says this, she puts her hand to her she puts her hand over her eyes, and she's like, when he asks her, well, am I right or am I wrong, and she's she's just saying to him, I really wish you were wrong, or I really wish you weren't right, because, again, he's telling her things that obviously, kind of ringing a bell with her, like, yeah, he's right, but, her response, afterwards is, look, I'm doing what I can to move on from what you did to me. I'm trying to make my life better for me, and by extension, the family, and I'm trying to make sure that neither of us go through this ever again. So yeah, this portion of the story has been really interesting. Really like really like a self-discovering, and realization of, yeah, maybe the reason Zigzag does the things she does is because it comes from her father, and and then basically some of those she's got to keep under control. Like, when she wants to, get with somebody, she's got to realize, okay, don't push it, just see if maybe they might want to have a little fun afterwards, and if not, that's fine. Let them do their thing. Move on. Just go do your thing. So anyway, yeah, it's been interesting, and I can't wait to see what page 80 has to offer. We might get Zigzag reuniting with the family again. This time including the mom, along with the grandparents and her siblings, one last time before she and Tina go back home to Double Z Studios and check up on things. And and honestly, I can't wait for that moment when either Zigzag calls up the studio, and instead of Sabrina answering, it's going to be Tabitha, and she's going to be like, "What are you doing there? Oh, what are you doing there? Why did you answer the phone?" I could see that reaction from a comedic standpoint, so I can't wait to see maybe, if that happens, or when they do show up, Sabrina and Tabitha are still hiding out there, and then she has to ask Sabrina, hey, what's going on here? And then Sabrina has to explain to her, oh yeah, that kiss you gave my mom and everything? Well, it awoke something inside of her to where not only did she not, mind it or anything. In fact, she enjoyed it, but it also woke something in her to where, by admitting or acknowledging, what happened, what it caused, it basically caused her and my dad to kind of have a little frisky, or get a little frisky with each other. I could see that. I could see that either by phone or in person when she gets back. Zigzag wondering why, Tabitha's there, and then Sabrina explaining to her that situation of, yeah, that kiss you gave my mom, it awoke something in her. She finally explained to us what's going on. Why she didn't just push you away or anything at first, and why she even admitted that she kind of liked it and all that. I can't wait to see what that explanation is when she finally just outright tells her, yeah, your kiss awoke something inside my mom, and by extension, after she explained the situation to us, awoke something in my father, and that's why we're here. That's why we're here. So I could see that, and I could see Zigzag kind of getting like a giggle out of it a little bit, like she'll realize, whoa, I didn't mean for that to happen. I didn't think a kiss from me would have that kind of an effect. You know, but yeah, but yeah, I can't wait to see if maybe that's how they start off page 80 with Zigzag checking in, and then she gets Tabitha instead of Sabrina, and then Sabrina explains what's going on, or we do end up, or we do end up saving that till the end, or at least close to the end, and all that. So it's going to be interesting how we build to the finale. But anyway, to get to this page though, we start off with Tina Lynx, her bisexual lover, if you will, opening the door to the visitation room, and she's telling Zigzag, Zig, this is what Tina says to start off. She says, because she opens the door, like I said, to the visitation room, and she says, Zig, they told me to tell you that visiting time is up. And then Zigzag responds, that's okay. I think we're done here. So long, Dad. If I never see you again, I'll probably be fine with that. And then the father's like, take care of yourself, baby girl. This was nice. So yeah, basically we start off with Tina saying to Zigzag as she's entering the room, Zig, they told me to tell you that visiting time is up. Zigzag's response is, that's okay. I think we're done here. So long, Dad. If I never see you again, I'll probably be fine with that. And then the father's response is, take care of yourself, baby girl. This was nice. And as they're leaving, and she's putting on her coat and everything, or Tina's, helping her put on her coat. Zigzag helping Zigzag put on her coat. That is. All of a sudden, Zigzag saying, "Come on, let's go." All of a sudden, you hear the father in the background going like, "Hold on a minute, don't I know you?" And then, and he's asking this to Tina. He's asking this to Tina, and he's like, Desiree Delphine, right? And he's calling her by her stage name because in case you don't know, I think it might have been mentioned here earlier on in this story arc, but I know it's been mentioned before in the past somewhere. I think at a Fur After Dark or something like that. But I know it's been talked about before. I just don't remember when. But yeah, that was her original stage name. That was her original stage name, Desiree Delphine, if you will. Like feline or Delphine. Yeah, that's what her stage name was, Desiree Delphine. That's what her stage name was. And that's why he's saying, hold on, because again, because again, Tina's going in there telling her, hey, the guards, the police told me that told me to tell you that the visiting time is up. Zigzag's like, okay, no problem. I think we're done here. And she tells the father, hey, if I don't ever see you again, I'll be good with that. And then the father's telling her, oh, take care of yourself, baby girl. This was nice. And as they're leaving, and Tina's handing and helping Zigzag, with put on her coat and everything, or her jacket. All of a sudden the father, calls out, "Hold on a minute! Don't I know you, Desiree Delphine, right?" Because he's asking that question. He's like, Desiree, Delphine, and then he says, "Oh man." This is the father's response. He's like, "Oh man. You were such a hot piece of ass back in the day. Your movies were the best." And then Tina, she's like, no, I'm not sure who that is. My name's Tina. And then the father's like, oh, sorry. And then he gets pulled away. But he has this look on his face like, wait a minute. That has to be, because he's looking and he's getting pulled away and everything, right? Or he's about to leave. But he's looking right at them, and they don't say anything at the end of the panel, but but Zigzag kind of gives her like this knowing look, like nice save, like this knowing nice save look, because basically, again, that was her stage name, that was her on-screen name, before and after she met Zigzag, that was her screen name, Desiree Delphine. And basically, Tina's like, "Oh, well, no, I don't know who that is. You got me mixed up with somebody else." And the father's like, "Oh, sorry." But the way he's looking at them in the last panel, it's like he's probably still thinking that's got to be her. Why is she saying her name's Tina when it's obviously not? It's got to be her. It's got to be this Desiree girl. But again, he doesn't have a chance to kind of like, call out again and say like, "Wait a minute, you are her." "Wait a minute, I was right. You are her." He doesn't have a chance to do that. He's just looking straight at them, like shocked, like in surprise of the fact that his daughter, who he knows is a very famous porn star because she has her own studios and stuff and done her own movies and everything. He's kind of surprised that that she, I should say, is hanging out with someone like this Desiree Dale Feline. He's kind of surprised by that, even though she's denying and saying, "No, that's not me. I don't know who you're talking about. But sorry." You know, and again, the look they give each other at the end is like, Zigzag looking down at her, smiling, going like, "Nice save." Nice save and everything. And I think now we understand why Tina wears the glasses. Why she always wears the glasses and everything, because basically if she took them off, and we've seen her with her glasses off, she looks really good. I mean, let's be honest. Eric W. Shorts knows how to, draw. He knows how to draw and color, female characters very attractively. And the earlier version of Tina, if you will, Tina Lynx, was very attractive. Not saying she's not attractive now. She is. Her character design is very cute and very attractive in some areas. But, the younger version is like, you could see why she got that name. Why she got the name of Desiree Dale Feline. Because of the fact that, you look at her, you're like, "Oh my gosh, she is fine," or feline, if you know what I mean. She's like a fine piece of work, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I like that little look they give each other at the end, where Zigzag's as I said, giving her giving her like the smiling that smiling look of nice save, nice cover and everything, because the father obviously he's into this kind of stuff, which shows you, as some people said in the comments of the Patreon where I saw this. This kind of shows that the father is still a piece of pos, if you will, a piece of shit. Let's put it that way. He's still a piece of shit. You know, but basically, obviously, he's so into this kind of stuff that he's able to recognize somebody. Even if they're a little bit more different. Than what they originally were. Because he's coming out and telling Tina, recognizing who she was by her stage name, coming out and saying, "Oh man, you were such a fine piece of ass and everything, and your movies were great." For him to say that to her by saying, "Oh, you were such a fine piece," he's basically saying, "Oh man, now that you're ballooned out a little bit, I don't know anymore, but man, I know you anywhere. I recognize you anywhere." And Tina making that save the way she did is like, like, like basically like, shoo, close call and everything. But again, that look they give each other at the end is like, yeah, they know they avoided disaster there. Like they know, yeah, that was a slick move. That was like a smart move, you know, a smart move on Tina's part to basically get around that and say, "Oh no, I'm not who you think I am." My name's Tina. So so I love that look of Zigzag, as I said, giving her this knowing, nice save smile and everything, and Tina just looking up at her like, you know, you know, not going to shoo, but looking up at her and smiling, going like, "Nice save, huh?" And Zigzag's response is, "Yeah, nice save." Basically, covering her tracks and everything. So, yeah, it's a nice little but yeah, so far, nice conclusion, I should say, to this portion of the story. Really enjoyed it. Like I said at the beginning, very, overall, the structure of the visitation portion between Zigzag and her father, I thought was done very well. Yes, we see that the father is still a scumbag, still a piece of crap, if you will, or piece of shit, as some people call him. We can still see that, but we can also see being behind bars, he's kind of changed a little bit to where he's acknowledging, yeah, I did some bullshit in my day that landed me here, and I regret it. He's regretting it, but he also is showing that even though he regrets it, to an extent, that he's still kind of, he's still kind of used to his old habits. In other words, he's still, someone that's going to be, he's still going to show his scumminess just by the way he acts and he, talks and everything. Because throughout this portion of the story, he acted, he came off almost like smug, not totally smug, but basically like, hey, you could say what you want, you could say this, but I know a little something. I know something more so than you do, or I know better in some areas. I know better in some things and in some areas than you. And Zigzag's response to kind of at least acknowledge and accept. Okay, fine. Maybe I do have traits. Maybe you're right about me being similar to you in personality and in traits and all that. For her to come out and say at least she's taking that she's taking those traits, some of that are good, that she gets from him, very little that is, and trying to make them, better than what he made them, and taking those negative traits and saying, I'm going to control them so they don't control me, is a nice response. It was a nice response in this portion of the story, so I like that. I really did. And her just lashing out and just when she had the opportunity, when he would say something, it would just like push a button in her, and she would just lash out, and she would just be like, you know, I'm basically letting him know how she feels of you did this to me, and this is why I'm this way, and you caused the family pain and suffering. That the you know when you look at those moments, you could say that definitely she was justified. She was really justified in her feelings, and you can't blame her. You can't blame her. So I really like what this arc did because it built more on the lore, built more on the lore for Zigzag, and gave us more of an idea of why she's the way she is. I mean, we kind of pretty much figured that out. When we saw similarities to what she would describe she went through with the father and all that. We saw those similarities, if you will, in her when she would kind of let those traits, control her instead of her controlling them. So so yeah, it was again a good, so yeah, this was a good chapter. I'll put it that way. I was trying to find the right words. I almost had a brain fart. Like I said in my previous audio video, it's early, so I do apologize. I'm still kind of waking up. But yeah, but yeah, basically, she, coming out and, at least acknowledging, that the father is right, but that, she's taking, some of those traits, those negative ones, and, she's going to plan to control them before they control her, because she knows what would happen and has happened if she lets them control her and stuff like that. So I love that. I love, again, as I was trying to say before I almost had my brain fart there, I love the lore building for Zigzag as a character. I love it. We're discovering more about her and everything, and the traits she gets from both parents, good and bad. And how she's trying to control the negative traits and not let them control her. I like that, and I like the fact that she was just finally able to just finally able to get everything off her chest, towards the father, and let him know how she feels, and let him know, hey, I took the name Zigzag that I used to be teased with, and I made it my own. I took it and made a positive out of it. I legally changed my name to that and made it a positive. And look at where I'm at now. So I love the interaction. I like the interaction between the two, and I love the fact that she stood up for what she believed in. For what she believed in, and stood up for her. Stood up and basically said, "Hey, this is going to be probably more than likely be the last time you ever see me and I ever see you. So I'm just going to let this all out and let you know that basically I'm moving on, and that I'm going to put everything you did to me, into the family, to the past, and I, along with them, they're moving on without you. So so basically, I like the character development and growth of Zigzag in this portion of the story, when she's doing the visitation with the father. Because again, the father, even though he still shows he's a scumbag, piece of shit, if you will, like I said, he had a little bit of development even in his introduction to where he regrets, the things he did, but does kind of still show that, yeah, he still can be a bit of a, SOB, because there's one part in the story where he's like, hey, when I get out of here, which he says he might get out in a few years, in the according to the story, that is, he might get out in a few years. He's saying that, he's saying and basically agreeing, to a point that, yeah, it'll be best for him just to go and do his own thing and not, you know, um, not, interfere in the mother's life, not interfere in the family's life anymore, not interfere in the mother's life anymore. I think her name is Ellie, I believe. So basically, I could see, I could see and understand where he's coming from there to where he's like, hey, I'm just gonna, when I get out of here, I'll win, and hopefully I get out of here. I'm gonna go off and do my own thing. I'll leave you guys be. I'll leave your mom be. But you know, but then he says this because basically Zigzag says that's fine. Her and the family, her and her siblings can watch after the mom. His response is, "Hey, hope." His response is, "I hope so, or else I'll have to come back." And Zigzag can telling him, "Hey, don't make it sound like a threat or anything, or don't make it sound so threatening." Because basically, when the father says that, like, hey, I hope you guys do take care of her, or else I'm going to have to come back, that again shows you that even though he is trying to, be better, in a sense, trying to redeem himself, quote unquote, for what he's done, he still shows he's a piece of crap. Because he's basically telling Zigzag in front of her face, I hope you guys take care of your mom, because if not, I might have to come back and, take care of business myself. That's the way you can interpret, the way he was saying it. Because Zigzag basically saying, hey, don't make it sound so threatening. That. So yeah, basically this part of the story I thought was a great character development and growth for Zigzag, and even through his official introduction for a bit of the father. But the father again shows you, even at the end here in the last page, he's still a low life SOB. He's still a low life SOB that thinks with his thinks with his bottom genitalia, if you will, his bottom genitalia, than his brain and his heart. So yeah, it was a great read, and like I said, I can't wait to see what we get in the next few pages. It looks like and feels like we're wrapping this up real soon, for at least I don't know if it'll get done by Thanksgiving, because Thanksgiving is literally in 2 weeks. A little less than 2 weeks by a day, or a little less than in 2 weeks, but basically a little less than 2 weeks by a day. I'll put it that way. So I don't know if it'll be wrapped up by then, because I know Eric will probably be taking time off to be with his family, and he might do a Thanksgiving, portion of the story with Zigzag enjoying Thanksgiving with her family, for the first time in a long time. So I could see that potentially happening. But afterwards, we'll see. I think he'll probably try to have it wrapped up by the end of the year, if not the beginning of 2026. But that's going to be up to him. Because right now we're at page 78, and it looks like and feels like he probably wants to try to get to 100 pages. That's just me, though. That's just me. But we'll see what he's got planned, because 100 pages is basically in 12 weeks, right? It's in 12 weeks. So you're looking at, next week, which is 79. Thanksgiving is 80. And then you're looking at, the first week of December is 81. The second week is 82. Third week is 84. Fourth week is 85. Fifth week is 86. Then you're looking at January as, 87. Second week of January, 88. 89 the third week. Fourth week in January is like 90. Like 90. You're probably looking more than likely at March. You're looking at March, as the for the end of the story, which would basically make it a 2-year run, make it a 2-year story, the longest he's ever done for the Sabrina online story, especially for a story that doesn't primarily focus on Sabrina. It focuses on Zigzag, a character created by a friend of his, in Max Black Rabbit. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to the conclusion. And again, it feels like it's getting close. We're getting close to it, I should say. It feels like we're getting close, but we'll see. But anyway, though, guys, that's all I can say on it. Let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comments if you haven't already in the live chat. What do you think is going to happen next? What did you think of this portion of the story arc between Zigzag and the father and everything? Did you like the character growth and development with her personally, as well as to a bit with the introduction of the father? Let me know. What do you think will be next on the agenda for Eric W. Shorts when it comes to continuing and finishing up this story? Let me know how do you see it happening and concluding, and do you see it probably ending before the year's out or as the year ends, or do you think it'll be over by the time we get into spring of next year, or at least March of next year? Let me know. And before I go, I'll let you know that I still feel that we're going to get that part of the ending is going to have Endora accepting Zigzag's apology, but by doing it by giving Zigzag a kiss on the lips and basically giving Zigzag a bit of a taste of her own medicine and kind of thanking her in a way for actually doing what she did to remind to awaken that side of her that she's been she's kind of locked away because she's always felt undesired, but not anymore. And I could see her potentially maybe hinting that, hey, if you do want to do the thing, name the time and place and we'll do it. So I could see that. I could potentially see that and everything. And maybe she'll even hint at a threesome with her, Zigzag, and Warren. Who knows? But yeah, I could see that maybe happening. But that's just me. And I do also see a Fur After Dark tie-in coming in as well as a part of this, where it's either going to be between Warren and Endora and them getting it on after Sabrina and Tabitha left, or I could see it being between Tina and Zigzag at the hotel they're staying at while they're on the road while they're visiting her family and in her old hometown, old home area, if you will. I could see that, or I could see maybe them doing a Zigzag and Endora to kind of pick up where or kind of pick up off of the potential hint that Endora could give Zigzag at the end of the story if that happens. If that happens, but that's what I feel is potentially the next. That's what I potentially feel is going to happen at the end, and what I feel potentially could be spun off in it in Eric's more adult-centric series spun off from Sabrina. But anyway, though, guys, that's all I can really say on it. Let me know what your thoughts are again in the comment section if you didn't already in the live chat, like I mentioned earlier. And until next time, do me a favor, like I said at the beginning, like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, and share the video. And click on the link in the description to find my content elsewhere and to support me elsewhere outside of YouTube. But until next time, guys, I will talk to you later. And until then, God bless. Take care.